Yung screen dyan, nakakita nyo, hindi siya yung bago ngayon ng pahaba, ano, na 16 by 19, yung mga TV ngayon, di ba, tsaka mga laptop monitor. So, gano'n nakaluma yan. Nung panahon na hindi pa gano'n yung mga screen. Dahil yung projector ko noon yata ganyan lang ang nagagawa noon. So, sinare ko lang sa ilang grupo dito. To one group here. All right. Did Jesus rise from the dead? We thought that maybe this is quite appropriate as well. Anyway, we're going through number one. We're going through the charismatic proclamations. And number two, Easter. Easter. Ano yung point ng Easter? Bakit ba tayo merong Easter? No, hindi dahil sa kay Astarte goddess of whatever, nagkataon lang yata na yung pangalan. Hindi ako sure kung paano naging Easter yung pangalan. But we know what we celebrate is Christ's resurrection. So, isa is, are we celebrating something that is real or fake news? Sa panahon ngayon na usong-uso ang fake news. We shouldn't be surprised if at some point, dahil kung magkaroon ng ganitong klaseng mentality ang mga tao sa mundo, well, in many parts of the world, na tipong at some point, sabihin nila, the resurrection that you Christians celebrate, haven't you heard of fake news? Haven't you heard of um, myths or made up stories? Just to whatever, to maybe whatever. And secondly, as we are, ano tawag doon? As we are going through itong mga charismatic proclamations, ano yung isang central element, if not the central element of these charismatic proclamations? Matandaan natin, di ba? Si Peter, may twice or thrice, sabi ni Peter, this Christ whom you crucified. Basically, sinasabi niya, God raised him from the dead. And he is now Lord and King. Central to the charismatic proclamation is the resurrection. Ngayon for us, sure, fine, we believe. Diba? We believe. But at some point, when the Holy Spirit spoke to us and we said, yes, Lord, sige na nga, I will share this gospel, this good news. And then there's a reply, maybe. And we shouldn't be surprised with the way the world is going. That they would say, come on, really, you believe Jesus? Did he even really even exist? How could he have risen from the dead? No, really, you believe such things? How do we go about it? And then here it is. What does Paul say? So even long before, what did Paul say? Basically, here, and if Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless, and so is your faith. Doon na lang, wag na the rest of the scripture there. Diba? If Christ did not rise from the dead, lahat nitong ating exercise, all this exercise on the charismatic proclamation is useless. And we are the most pitiable of people on earth. Believing on something. That's not true. Okay, so for this, if you haven't seen this video, I produced this. No. No. I'll be sharing with you. Oh no, I need to stop share and share audio. Okay, share. And share again and share sound. Share again. All right, let's go to YouTube. YouTube. Say it. YouTube. Let's watch the commercial. Okay. Ready na? Palakihin lang natin. Low system resources. Oh no. Great. Bakit? Wait. Great. This is not good. Yeah, naghahang yung aking laptop. Baka sobrang choppy yan eh.
Dude, hey, what's up? What you reading?
Wait. Baka sobrang choppy ngayon. Let me just close that. Close that. Okay. Dali lang ha. Low system resources daw ako eh. Buksan ko lang yung task manager. Ano to? Bakit dalawa ang aking Zoom instances? Task manager, more details. Performance. Memory. Andito ang processes. CPU. Memory. Nakay. Chrome. Zoom meetings. CPU. Nakay Zoom. At anti-malware. Okay, I think that's the best I can do. Baka dapat i-share ko na lang yung link. We watch ourselves. Let me know, interrupt me if it's just too choppy. Okay? Here goes. May sound dapat ha. Tell me kung wala.
Dude,
Hey, what's up?
what you reading?
The Bible.
You're reading the Bible?
Yeah.
Dude, why are you reading the Bible? For class?
No, I just...
Okay, so you're just reading the Bible. You're just sitting here in a coffee shop in the 21st century using state-of-the-art technology to read ancient myths for no reason whatsoever.
Well...
Tell me something. Are you one of those super religious people who thinks Jesus actually rose from the dead?
Well, I do believe that...
Do you also believe in the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, unicorns, Bigfoot? Ever been abducted by aliens? And do you buy into all those other ancient myths about dying and rising gods invented by primitive nomadic tribes back in the Bronze Age?
No.
Okay, so what's the difference between Jesus rising from the dead and all those other fairy tales?
Here's the difference. My belief in the resurrection of Jesus is rational. It's based on historical facts.
Facts? What facts?
Well, first, Jesus died by crucifixion.
Whoa, hold on. We don't even know if Jesus existed. Why should I believe your facts?
Well, because the 5 facts I'm going to give you are backed by so much historical evidence that most professional critical scholars who study the subject accept them as true. That includes skeptical atheist scholars.
Okay, so Jesus was a guy who actually existed and then got himself killed. So what?
That's the first fact. Second, his disciples were convinced that he rose from the dead and appeared to them. Third, Paul, a sworn enemy of the early Christians, suddenly became a Christian. Fourth, Jesus' skeptical brother James also became a Christian. And fifth, the tomb where they put Jesus' body was empty.
And those are well-established historical facts.
Right, but you can't just leave it there. These facts demand an explanation. Otherwise, you've got a big hole in human history.
Okay, here's an explanation. They all lied. It was a conspiracy, the most monumental prank ever perpetrated. His followers stole his corpse from the tomb and then started telling everybody he was alive.
That's the conspiracy theory. The problem is it doesn't explain the facts. How do a few spineless fishermen, cringing in fear for their lives, subdue a bunch of well-armed, professional Roman guards, roll away a 2-ton stone, steal a body, then hide it from a city swarming with people trying to find it? And why would they do it? The disciples had absolutely nothing to gain by lying about Jesus' resurrection. In fact, they were persecuted, and we have good historical evidence that 5 of them were martyred because of their claim that Jesus rose from the dead. Apparently not a single one of them ever recanted. People don't willingly die for something they know isn't true. They were there. They knew whether it was true or not.
All right, another theory. The disciples thought they saw Jesus alive after he died, but it was just wishful thinking. They were stressed and just kind of hallucinated.
The hallucination theory also lacks explanatory power. 500 witnesses saw Jesus at the same time, and the disciples touched him. Psychologists have shown that hallucinations don't work like that, nor does this explain the empty tomb.
Okay, look, maybe there's some other explanation, but the bottom line is dead people stay dead. Rising from the dead would be a supernatural event, a miracle, and science has proven that miracles don't happen.
Oh, really? When did that happen?
I don't know. I just kind of heard it somewhere.
Science has not disproven miracles. In fact, that would be impossible.
Why?
Science deals exclusively with natural phenomena, physical matter and material processes, right?
Yeah.
But a miracle, by definition, is not a natural phenomenon. It's supernatural.
So,
So a supernatural event would lie outside the boundaries of science. It's logically impossible for science to throw out any hypothesis that lies outside its boundaries.
why have I never heard this stuff before?
I don't know, maybe because it's scary?
Scary.
Yeah, as long as Jesus rising from the dead is just a fairy tale, like Santa Claus and unicorns, it doesn't threaten my little world. But if it's a fact, if he actually did rise from the dead, that's huge. It's a total game changer. And that's why it's so hard to think about it objectively.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Big whoa.
All right. How was that? Bigat ba? A little too fast? A little too heavy? The point is, yeah, because we can say, Jesus, and we might be taking it for granted, being born in a country that's practically Catholic, that practically believes 100 more than 90% believes in Jesus being God, and so therefore it's not impossible for him to have risen from the dead. Diba? The point is, for those that don't, if we meet anyone, the first thing I think that they would think is, it's not rational, is it? Is it rational to say that this person, number one, existed 2,000 years ago, was killed, and then rose again from the dead? That all that happened. This PDR, Passion, Death, Resurrection, all that happened. Is it reasonable? What do you think? From just a pure, if we were to put on the brain or the thinking of a non-believer, why don't they believe? Or why don't they accept it as like in this case, what we'll be going through is actually, why don't they accept it as the most reasonable conclusion, or reasonable, what we call that, explanation for the facts? So if you noticed, the video didn't say these prove that Jesus is alive, that Jesus rose from the dead. It said that these are facts that we know about. These are the facts we know about. May question? Anything? Heavy? I'm going to be going through the facts. So these again are facts. So just to establish, let's see, is it reasonable? And the point of what we're going to have today, what we're having now, is not to like convince you or convince ourselves so much about it, but rather to see that, hey, is it reasonable? These are the facts we have. How do we explain the facts? And let me continue to demonstrate what we mean by facts by going through these facts. Number one, Jesus died by crucifixion. That's one fact. How is it a fact? We have attestations, diba? We have historical documents, historical attestations. Some might say, but most of your historical basis is based on those written by believers. If it was the Gospels or Paul's letters, they were written by believers. How could they be credible? One thing is, who else would write, except believers, really? Or maybe those that have found, some historians might have found him relevant enough to put them in their historical books. And there are, tama ba, Bong? There are historical accounts of Jesus outside of the Bible. So there are what do you call it, historians close to the time of Jesus, like is it Josephus and somebody else? Another Us. There are, and in those accounts, if you try to find them, you'll see okay, okay, it was a time of Pontius Pilate. There was this Jesus crucified. And this is established as a fact by not just by Christians but by historians. So one, Jesus died by crucifixion. One fact. Let's check maybe a little more about that fact. Some might say, "Oh, he did actually die," trying to disprove the facts. Oh, he actually didn't die. Um, but historians say, put there, no, it was Jesus. He was crucified. If they didn't die, the soldiers would have paid for it maybe for with their lives. If there's one thing that the Roman soldiers knew to do, what is that? What is the one skill a Roman soldier needs to be good at? Needs to be good at killing the enemy. If a Roman soldier doesn't know dead from alive and doesn't know to make sure if someone's dead, and crucifixion is supposed to kill and wouldn't let them off the cross to be buried unless they were dead. Any other theory sounds crazy. But let's go and let's try to destroy what, because currently our explanation for the facts we know, for ourselves at least, that yeah, Jesus did die and rise from the dead. But later we'll see if we can try to explore if it's not too heavy. So one fact, Jesus died by crucifixion. Second fact, the disciples are convinced he rose from the dead. So there are accounts of his disciples seeing him alive. Third fact, Paul became a Christian. Why is Paul relevant? What do you think? Anyone? Why would that be a fact that we will put in here?
Because he used to persecute crucify Christians or the disciples or believers.
Yeah. And then suddenly he will say he's alive and even proclaim his name. Yeah. And we can see that clearly as a fact. We have his letters as well. Yeah. Besides the people he taught, and then he passed it down to us, even if we didn't have the letters. But we passed. Oh, St. Paul said. Next, James became a Christian. So okay, this is a bit of a James became a Christian. Why James? This might be more difficult. James.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because James began as a skeptic. James is one of the brothers of Jesus in the what do you call that? In the vocabulary of the New Testament, he's a brother of Jesus. But we know, of course, brothers can mean a cousin, a half brother, step brother. Can mean any of those. But that's not the point. James, although he was close to Jesus, was actually a skeptic. And then James actually not only became a Christian, but what I understand is he also became the Bishop of Jerusalem. Oh, kailangan ko na i-review kung aling James yun. Yeah? Imagine that. Not just a mere Christian, but a leader in the church. So a skeptic, that's another fact. Fifth fact The tomb was empty. Okay, now just to for us to understand what facts are, why would you say this is a fact that is part of the resurrection investigation? Kumbaga, the tomb was empty. Why is that there as a fact? Why is that relevant? A relevant fact? What's the best way to prove a person isn't dead? Go ahead, sige.
And his
No more, no more dead
body is not
body.
there.
Uh-huh. Correct.
Yeah, no more dead
Ed,
body.
asabi mo?
No more dead body that could be found from the tomb. So no way to explain it that he has risen from the dead.
One way to prove, right, that somebody's dead, produce the body, produce the corpse. If you
Yeah.
cannot produce the corpse, you cannot really 100% say that the person's dead. So here's a fact: an empty tomb is there because it points away from the person being dead. It wasn't all right. Okay, next. So we have these facts. I don't know if there can be other facts that can be thought of that might be relevant, but let's stick to these. Ito yung I was hoping to be like an a fun part of what we're doing today is try to explain this in any other way except that Jesus actually rose from the dead. These are the 5 facts. And for example, okay, one example that was given, how to explain what really happened was one was a hallucination, right? Right, hallucination. They all just saw that Jesus was alive. Okay, but then how does that explain, for example, that Jesus did die by crucifixion? If they just saw, oh yeah, it would no, he died by crucifixion, but so it's fine. They died by crucifixion, but they hallucinated. Disciples convinced he rose from the dead. Okay, by hallucination. Okay, that's also fine. Paul believed by hallucination. Okay, James became a Christian by hallucination. Okay, the tomb was empty and can be explained that they looked alive, but just because the tomb being empty, maybe they just didn't find the dead body. Someone stole it, and so therefore uh, they hallucinated, and it's fine, and it can explain all that. Part of the evidence or the fact number 2, though, is when the disciples were convinced that he rose from the dead at one point, for example, is 500 of them saw him at the same time. If you have watched Lee Strobel's The Case for Christ, have you? Has anyone? Oh, then see if you can find a way to watch it. May
I have the
Blu-ray.
book.
Oh, you have the book. Wow.
Mga more than 10 years old na, pero hindi ko pa nababasa.
Madali
Nandyan
lang
sa
siguro.
aking collection.
Madaling reading lang siguro yun.
Talaga?
Madaling reading lang siguro.
Sandali.
Pero depende because yung book baka okay. Yeah. Ngayon meron din siguro dalawang klaseng presentation si Lee Strobel eh. Yung isa is yung actually presenting the case for Christ, and the other, which was made into a movie, is yung kanyang journey. So drama yung movie pero good enough. Hindi siya apologetic yung movie as is, no? It's more about his journey, yung drama ng buhay niya. Because he was an adamant atheist journalist. And he went off to try and prove that Christ didn't rise from the dead or disprove the resurrection. Now, part of in the movie and in the book is in the movie he interviewed he went ahead therefore and interviewed people, an expert, at least one expert, no, walang expert in the end, ang kinonsult niya, on hallucinations. And the expert said, at least in the movie, you know what? It would be, for me, it would be more, I could accept the resurrection, the hallucination expert, psychologist expert, uh, replied, saying, you know, I can accept the resurrection more as something that could have happened more than 500 people seeing the same, hallucinating the same thing. You cannot explain hallucinations for mass hallucinations seeing the same thing. So there's one. Ano pa? What other theory do you think we can try to match up against the facts and see if it works or not?
Hearsay.
You say ano yung hearsay that he's alive?
That all of this na he died by crucifixion, he rose from the dead, Paul became a Christian, James became a Christian, and the tomb was empty. You can all say all the five can be based on hearsay of what people said. That's why this people believe it. Tama ba yung train of thought ko?
Maganda yan. Step back, pero maganda yan.
May witnesses naman, so hindi siya masasabing hearsay. Hearsay kung parang second hand na story lang. So may witnesses, so yun ang considered na first hand, di ba?
Correct. Parang ang tinatanong ni Francis, ano yung pwede natin gamitin to disprove
Yung
a
tomata.
certain, like ako, I'm saying hearsay is one way that people can explain these are not facts, but if you base it on the five, then you can disprove that it's hearsay. Tama ba?
Yun nga, step back yun.
Okay.
Dahil
Oo.
dahil the stage where we are in is we have established these already as facts.
Mhm.
They're
Correct.
no longer hearsay. So these are accepted facts already.
Mhm.
Now to say that they're hearsay would be to go through each of these again and say and challenge the veracity of each
Correct.
of these. And therefore trying to say that okay, you say these are facts, but they are not facts. But these are facts such that not only Christians believe this, not only Christians affirm these as facts, experts do, historians do. So that there was this Jesus that was killed by crucifixion, and this is that Jesus that is we are talking about now, or the church is preaching that it is a fact that people did witness to, and it's because it's recorded in history that people did say that Jesus rose from the dead, that he's alive. But that's all in the Bible. But we also know that there were Christians who were persecuted, and that's not only in the Bible. Christians were persecuted in the time of shortly after Jesus' death and resurrection. It's not disputed. They were persecuted, and they were known as Christians. And their faith was basically known what it was about. It was about this Jesus. So, and it's from there. Historically, we know, of course, we find in the Bible, see people saying, I saw Jesus. First was Mary Magdalene, and so on and so forth. So that's a fact. Paul became a Christian. Yes, that's a fact. We don't deny that. But Paul is not a Christian, and yet he writes all those letters, establishes all those churches. James became a Christian, as attested to by a historical fact, at least by the scriptures, which are historical documents. Maybe some might be doubting straight away, okay, but can we really use anything coming from scripture as historical fact? I just sometimes pick that up and it confuses the discussion, I think, when I try to go back and try to explain how come that's a fact when it's only from the Bible, something like that. But then let's move from the basis of these are already facts. A fact was the tomb was empty. That's a fact. It was such a fact that not only the Christians said that, or the believers, or the disciples said the tomb was empty. Uh, uh, Such that they did think about maybe the disciples might steal the body,
Mm.
and so therefore say that he's alive. Merong ganung account coming from the enemies of Christ. Tomb was empty. It's a fact. So these are all, because if the tomb wasn't empty, then we don't even have this discussion. If the body was there, the church wouldn't exist now. So that's a fact.
So what
So,
are you asking?
all right.
Parang yung
How do we-
hallucination mo, parang sinabi ko lang, aside from hallucination na example mo, the hearsay is like the hallucination na pwedeng easily disproved
Oo nga.
by the historical facts. So,
Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't have started with that. So I know.
correct.
So
Because you
let's say,
confused us.
tingnan natin kung ano pang example kaya.
Siguro mga fake news from the Romans, Francis.
Ano yun?
Fake news from the Romans na yung mga Roman soldiers na nagbabantay nung tomb, they were asked to tell a lie kasi nga they don't want to create na yung claims para repeat nila yung claims ng mga apostles that they have seen the risen Christ who were with them, di ba? Even the dating Thomas was not present at the first time that Jesus appeared among the apostles. So nag-appear siya ulit, and he asked Tom to put his fingers to his side where he was struck by the spear, di ba? So parang inaano na may fake news na back then para hindi maging use yung pagkawala ni Jesus sa tomb eh. So may fake news na back then na pinapagline nila yung mga Roman soldiers to tell that that Jesus was stolen by the apostles. So back then may fake news na. So pero meron namang nag-appear naman si Jesus sa apostles a few times, di ba? So doon sa testimonies ng mga apostles, they have seen the Lord Jesus alive with marks on his wounds, which they have seen still fresh, but with flesh that they could touch. Diba?
So yung fake news na sinasabi ng mga Roman soldiers is, ano yung fake news na yun?
That Jesus was stolen by the apostles, and he didn't really rose from the dead. So nagpapalabas sila ng gano'n na para hindi maniwala ang tao na Jesus was as resurrected, as rose from the dead.
Pero ang sinasabi mo, that cannot explain the fact that actually Jesus appeared, and the people knew that it wasn't just a ghost, because like Thomas, he said he saw Jesus, who is a doctor. He saw Jesus flesh and blood, baga, bodily alive, hindi lang a ghost. Yeah. Pero alam mo, actually, it's also fair anyway, yung step back, trying to dispute the facts as well. It's one approach. It's okay. And whether we try to dispute the facts,
Correct.
or accept it already as facts, and then from there try to see the best explanation,
Yes.
either way is fine.
Correct.
Either way.
Kasi with your example, it was also a way nga to say now, if I was a non-believer and I say, no, that's all hearsay, and then I base it on this 5, then I can say, no, it's not hearsay. Parang ganun yung trend of thought ko. Yun lang.
France, siguro by those times, no, yung culture nila, kasi hindi tulad ngayon na when you will be showing evidence, meron na yung mga ng mga scientific proof, ganun. By their time, yung 'di ba, it is transmitted through oral.
Correct.
In fact, yung ano natin, yung kirigma, hindi mo yan makikita sa written manuscript nila before kasi hindi pa sinusulat that time eh. So they rely on persons nga ano sila, na credible enough to to tell and witness nga Jesus really resurrected. So siguro it has something to do with the culture, man. Our tradition was transmitted orally and our belief is through the liturgy. 'Di ba may na-link ka na na sa kay Scott Hahn na na-link mo na ni-refer mo sa amin. Scott Hahn is talking about the resurrection or correct me if I'm wrong, baka si Jeff Cavens, no? So they're talking about resurrection. And yung sa Easter na what we are talking now, siguro yun lang, yung sa mind ko kasi it has something to do with the culture, and one way to prove that at their time na Jesus is alive is through their transmission passing
stories.
Of the stories. So parang narrative ba? Until such time we are lucky enough na in our time meron na yung mga written facts na. Oo. Say yun ng conference.
Yeah, actually, hinuhope ko sana na nandito si Dodi, meron sana tayong magaling na lawyer. Ngayon pa wala. Ako, maganda to, andyan si Dodi, tapos para ma-explain niya, okay kung merong case, tapos ito yung facts na tinitingnan, tapos then try to come to the most reasonable explanation of the facts. Baka na-explain ni Dodi ng mas malinaw kung how these facts work.
Ulitin na lang natin ulit pag nandiyan na si Dodi.
I-present mo ulit.
Present natin ulit.
Kasi sabi mo.
Oo. Bigyan mo lang kami ng
When we discuss this.
Correct.
And we need this valuable explanation of the matter.
Ano pa kayang pwedeng kumontra dito? Tapos tingnan natin how that may or may not be the best explanation. Like for example, Jesus died. He was there, yeah, sure. He was killed. But then he was resuscitated. He wasn't completely dead. Diba? Anong problema nun? May problema ba yun?
Yung spear na ata na nag-final to make sure that he's dead. Yung last step na yung soldier na nag-spear kaya sa side ni Jesus. Yun na yung na-convince sila na patay na si Jesus.
Correct. Yan, isa yan dyan. How cannot explain it? Yeah.
At saka the type of death through crucifixion is very difficult. Diba? Parang you can't breathe, you drown because of the breathing. It's so bad na kasi they were saying na for people who are crucified, it depends on how bad the scourging is. So usually, if you're scourged and it's not that bad, it takes you about mga 12 or more hours to die. Kaya nga they break your bones so that you'll die na. Pero yung kay Jesus, he started with a really, 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 really bad scourging. So he died at 3, from 12 to 3. So that was very short. That means nga that it was a very bad scourging. Tapos, they didn't even need to break his bones because it was already proven that he was dead. So that cannot be refuted.
Yeah.
Yun pa, diba? Isa is, we have evidence really that Jesus was really dead. And like Ed also said, yun na nga sinigurado pa in-spear pa. So he's actually dead. So to say that, he was not completely dead cannot be an explanation for one. Yeah. And then it also wouldn't explain that they did not produce a live body. There was no live or dead body There was no body, or except, oh, there was actually live body that was produced, or live body was produced, not dead body. Kumbaga, there was no dead body produced.
Kasi either way, if they produced a live body, then it would have um, increased the followers of Jesus because he was able to survive the crucifixion.
Mm.
But if they were not able to produce a body, that proved that he resurrected. So either way, it was a plus for Jesus. So siguro yung mga Romans or whoever, hindi na alam mo yung they were grasping at straws on what was better to say.
Very good. Yon, that's how to do the evidence. Buti lang,
Di ba
just
mahirap, alam mo, mahirap mag-isip, lalo na pag binibigyan ka ni Dodi ng mga highfalutin na gano'n. Sinasabi ko sa'yo, tanong mo kay Christy, tinext ko kagad, nagpapanik na ako. Galingan mo kasi kukopya lang ako sa'yo.
Hindi ko pa kailangan pagdasal ko ng ni Holy Spirit na in charge sa ano ko. Hindi ko na alam kung paano how will I go about it eh. Kasi
Diba?
sabi niya agayahin ko yung kay Christy na na presentation.
Oo, sinabi rin niya sa akin yun. Sabi ko, wala nga ako dun eh.
Hindi ko nawala rin ako, absent ako last week. Tapos, hindi naman pala na-record.
Correct. So, kailangan ulitin ni Christy.
Mag-sleepless night muna kayo bago.
Oh my God.
Di ba, Grace?
Gulating ka kaya ng ganun. Alam mo yun?
Mag-SOS kaya kami kay Christy.
Correct. Alam mo, Christy, kailangan natin mag-zoom tapos instructions paano gagawin.
Yeah.
Kahit yung PowerPoint, like, oh my God, di ko maintindihan. Parang English ba to? Pwede ba supporting role na lang ako? Hindi ko kaya yun eh.
Okay lang yan. Okay lang yan.
Napagdaanan ko rin yan.
Oh my God.
Ano to? Si Bishop Barrow naman, yung explanation niya doon, sabi niya doon sa he wasn't completely dead or he was resuscitated, but then he suffered the passion, he suffered the scourging, he suffered crucifixion. And then from there, he said, okay, he survived it. He comes out of the tomb, almost zombie-like. And then from there, you put up a new religion, sort of. Will you? It's not resurrection. It's not. Diba? It's like, where's the power in that? Sabi ni Bishop Barrett, it's not. Okay, and then you'll come up with such a vibrant group of people just because he survived the crucifixion, but then he's like almost dead anyway coming out of it. Ano pa? Ano pa kaya explanation? Actually, baka meron
They
iba
went to the wrong tomb.
They went to the wrong tomb.
Guarded yung tomb eh.
They went to the wrong tomb. They went to the wrong tomb. Iba yung binantayan na tomb, ibig sabihin wala pala si Jesus all the while, hindi pala yun yung tomb.
Hindi pala yun yung tomb.
Hindi yung pwede. Kasi,
hindi pwede. Oh.
But then if they went to the wrong, alam mo yan, it's just a dispute. Baka they went to the wrong tomb.
Correct. Pero yung explanation ko na bakit hindi pwede, kasi that tomb was given by a wealthy man.
Simon.
So, Simon bought that tomb for his family. So, ano yun? Hindi siya parang mass grave. Special siya.
Parang mausoleum siguro. Something.
Basta special yun.
Parang mausoleum.
There's the answer to that.
Oo. Tapos, yung soldier na nagbantay sa kanya is no ordinary soldier. He was like a high-ranking soldier. From the time sinara yung tomb, hindi nila iniwan yun.
Kumbaga, elite soldier yan.
So the tomb of Christ was owned by one of the...
Joseph.
Hindi nga siya mass grave.
Hindi siya mass grave. It was a special grave. Parang naawas, di ba? Kasi nga, Joseph of Arimathea and Simon, they were the ones that helped him. Alam mo kung ba't ko alam lahat to? Kasi nag-attend ako ng Bible study nila called sa sa parish. So, we were talking about the Passion right before Easter. So, sobrang eksakto yung timing. So, we were talking about the tomb nga na they were saying they cannot disprove it because nga the tomb was parang it was this guy bought it. He's not a normal guy. He's a traveler. So mayaman siya. So hindi ano siya, parang chosen siya, parang special place. So hindi pwedeng yung mawawala ka sa mass grave kasi nga ang daming tao doon na unmarked. Hindi. Special siya. Tama ba, Francis?
Very good.
Joseph
Very good.
Obano.
Very good.
Oh, very
Okay, now, punta na tayo sa, tingnan natin naman, paano kung ang explanation is Jesus really did rise from the dead? How does it match up versus the facts?
Okay. Ano to? May video ka?
Wala.
Alam mo,
Tayo lang.
pinapaisip mo kami masyadong weekend.
Ang daya, ano? Ang daya ko ba? Kung po si Francis na naman magpe-present ba? Dami na naman tanong niyan. Hindi naman yung nagpe-present, yung nagtatanong lang.
Alam mo, mahirap. Nag-shut off ang brains Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock. Kayo naman sumagot. Pass na ako. Goodbye.
Ayan. Tingnan natin. Can the resurrection be a good explanation versus these facts? Jesus died by crucifixion. It's a fact. Therefore, sino lang makakapag-resurrect? Ang mag-resurrect, siyempre, yung namatay. It's proven, it's a fact, accepted fact that Jesus was dead. Therefore, rising from the dead, okay. Disciples were convinced he rose from the dead. So people are saying he rose from the dead. That's a good explanation. A resurrection is a good explanation because that's what people were saying. And then, in fact, that's why this gets a challenge, is that because people were saying that he's alive. So wait a minute, really? Can you show me the facts? That's where it started, though. But then the witness themselves are facts. That people are witnessing or people are testifying. No, meron kang witness stand ng more than 500 people testifying. That's the fact.
Yeah.
And the resurrection agrees with the fact. Is supported by the fact as well. Paul became a Christian.
Saul became
Yeah.
Paul.
Saul became Paul.
Yeah.
Became. So that fact, the resurrection as well, satisfactorily explains that fact. Diba?
Yeah.
Paul knew, James as well, similar. The tomb was empty. So whatever dead body was there, the resurrection can explain why there's no dead body in there. Because that body is now alive. That's one good explanation.
I have a question.
Oh,
Tama ba intindi ko yung the wrappings, yung kung saan binalot si Jesus?
Shroud?
Oo, naka-shape pa ba yun ng katawan or naka-fold na? Ano ba? Hindi ako sure eh.
naka-fold na raw to the side lahat eh.
Ah, okay.
Because yun yung account, hindi ko alam aling gospel account, but it was all the
Okay.
were folded and put
Okay.
neatly on one side,
Okay.
which also is it's like one detail of the evidence where when they found the tomb that was empty, that these things were folded nicely, was that the body wasn't that the explanation of trying to explain this that the body was stolen, which doesn't explain how people are saying that they saw him alive. So that's why it cannot be a good explanation for the facts. It's another thing that what do you call that contention, what do you call that, or why the explanation of saying maybe this can be explained by the body being stolen is not a good one, because when they went into the tomb, the only valuable things were still there. Why would they steal the body and not the cloths? It's like, huh? Ano yun?
At saka it will take time to take out the cloth, di ba?
Oo.
So they didn't have time.
Yung pa.
Kung magnanakaw ka, di ba?
Magnanakaw. Yeah. So that's what I should have started with. One theory is the body was stolen. Why cannot that be a good explanation? That's because people said that they saw him alive. Yeah. So that it doesn't match with the evidence. Now the resurrection, put all these facts together. It the resurrection. I don't see any. I don't see anything to exclude that as a reasonable explanation. Yeah, especially as it's established Jesus was dead. And it's established that people said he's alive, even his enemies, and the body was never found physically. How do you explain? Must be true. How do you say, explain it by resurrection? Yeah, a reasonable, rational conclusion based on the facts, or explanation based on the facts. Now, if people try to explain this somehow, so one part of the video that then afterwards was, then the question is, all right, if people knew these facts, how come they still don't believe? It's like you try to explain it and then they find that their explanation falls short based on the facts. How come still they don't believe? One last hear it of at least in that video of the the one of the characters said, well, dead people stay dead. That's just a fact. Dead people just stay dead. And if you ask why, because if dead people didn't stay dead, that would be a miracle, and we know that miracles don't happen. Yeah, how do you prove that miracles don't happen? Well, science proves that miracles don't happen. So one issue today is like, unless it can be something can be proven by science, it can't be true. What the video showed is that not everything can be shown to be true by science. Yeah, especially as science deals with the natural world, deals with physics. It can prove what it can taste, feel, see, touch, smell. Di ba? Basta mga
Tangible.
teachers ng science dyan. Ha?
Tangible.
Oo,
Tangible things.
physical things. Those that occupy space and time, matter, or energy. If it's beyond those, science has no way of studying them. Ngayon, miracles, by definition, is outside of the natural. Therefore, outside of the realm of science.
Yeah. Even science cannot explain
Yeah, science,
miracles. Yeah.
because it's outside its realm.
Yeah.
But there are truths outside of science. Gaya nung meron, there's moral truth, ethical truths, ano yung mga ibang truths na pinakita niya doon? Philosophical truths, mathematical truths. Now, in this case, because by definition, miracles happen supernaturally, not naturally, therefore, science can't explain it.
Agree.
So if you're trying to find proof of miracles through science, it's not very logical. It's not logical, right? Try to find proof from something that actually can't. So now let's pretend that all that is convincing. If we get to such a conversation with somebody, let's pretend that all that is convincing. How come still people would not believe? Because still, people would not believe even with all that. We see that it is the most, I think, most reasonable explanation for the facts. And yet people would not believe. Why? And here's the reality. the main reason people would not believe is because of what it could mean, what it would mean to them personally, what it would mean to us personally. Because if Jesus, who spoke and walked, walked and talked and acted in the person of God, did really rise from the dead, then what is the implication if they accept that as truth? So the main reason I would find is, especially for those who have studied the facts and come to conclude, right, the best explanation is the resurrection, is that people just don't want what it means. Yung implication sa buhay. Because if Jesus is who he says he was, and he died and rose from the dead, we have a decision to make. Whoever hears that has a decision to make. Do I begin to follow Jesus, or do I ignore? Yun eh. That's the main difficulty. That's the main difficulty. All right. I don't think I need to go through the other slides. It's the same thing. See, just alternatives. Yeah. And then I just have here, if you wanted more, there's always there's Catholic.com Encyclopedia Resurrection. If you wanted a better explanation than I did. Oh, nag-overtime pa tayo nun. Kasi pinag-isip ko na naman kayo.
Francis, if I may add kay Doubting Thomas, di ba?
Oh.
As part of the inner circle na siya, 11 or 12 of the disciples, di ba? Yet he didn't believe the words from the apostles, from the others who have seen Christ. So how much, kaya natin, di ba sinabi nga ni Lord, blessed are they who believe, who have not seen and yet believe. Kasi siya, nung kailangan pa niyang itutok yung daliri niya sa side ni Jesus bago siya naniniwala. So, blessed are they who have not seen and yet believe. So, kasi ang dami talagang kahit na among the inner circle, si Thomas, he didn't believe at first. So, kaya nga sinabi ni Jesus, blessed are they who believe, who have not seen and yet believe in me. Parang gano'n. So, yun lang.
Yeah, nagkaroon din tuloy ako ng insight doon na, Ed. Kumbaga talaga yung mga ayaw maniwala, hindi talaga maniniwala eh.
Kahit anong paliwanag na person na witness na kasama na niya sa inner circle dyan. Yung 12, yung other apostles, the other 10.
So number one is, pasalamat tayo kay Lord that we have the faith. Where our faith really, again, just to remind us, it's not really based on because of. It's the most reasonable explanation of the facts. We know that we have faith because it's by God's grace that he has given us this faith. Number one, we cannot manufacture this faith. So, and faith is not just about, believing things as facts or as historical facts. No, it's not just that. Faith is, of course, especially for us Christians, is putting our trust, our lives, submitting, surrendering our lives to the one in whom we put faith, which is God himself. That is.
Yeah. But it's our choice, which is good that you choose.